We're up to the Mishnah on Daf Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. Eid Omer Meis. One witness testified that her husband died. Vanessa said she got married. But Eid Echad, another aid comes now to be machish the first aid. V'omer lo meis. Harezu lo teitze. We're not going to bust up the marriage based on the akash of the second aid. We're going to leave well enough alone. And he, the second aid, hamachish, doesn't have the power here to give her a chazak of Ashes ish, such that now she is not being not allowed to get married to the second husband. Eid Omer Meis, one witness testifies that her husband died. Shnayim Omer Lo Meis. In such a case, Afal Pisha Nisei states, because we believe the two against the one, even if she got married already, we're going to bust up that marriage. And the Gemara is going to ask Pshit. Finally, Shnayim Omer Meis, the aid, one witness says, Lo Meis, Afal Pi Shelo Niseis Tinase. So we don't count the aid hamachish at all against two aid. And once again, the Gemara is going to try to figure out what the chiddush is. But first, the Gemara is going to point out why the Mishnah puts all the emphasis on the word v'nises. Time of the nises. We don't accept the aid hamachish because she was married based on the testimony of the first aid. Implying lo nises, if she had not been married to the second husband and the second aid came in, lo tinase. We're not going to allow her to get married because we have what's called eid echad b'akash. So Gemara asks, "Va'omar ula kol makom shemina l'Torah eid echad arekan shnayim." When the Torah does believe one aid, he is elevated to the status of two aidim. And now there's one aid who's being machish two aidim. We can't accept the one aid. Is therefore, even if the second aid came before the heter nesuin, we should allow her to get married based on the first aid, because the first aid through the principle of ula was upgraded to the status of two aidim. And the Gemara answers the following. In truth, even if she hadn't got married based on the first witness, the second is not neman to be makish. The Mishnah says v'nises hachi kamer. This is what the Mishnah has in mind. Whether she got married or not, but she got the green light, meaning Bezdin accepted the testimony of one aid and they gave a license to get married. Uba eid echad v'yomer lo meis, now comes in the eid akash lo teitzim at teira harishon. So it means that the eid echad is neman kishnayim according to ula b'tziruf if we add hitiru linose. In other words, Bezdin accepting the aid and issuing a ruling that she's allowed to get married, that elevates the eid echad to the status of shnayim. But in lo hitiru, if Bezdin did not get involved at this point to allow her to get married, and even Ula would agree that the Eid HaMakrish would now mollify the Eid HaMeid. Because as long as there was no Heter Linase, then the first aid is not considered elevated, upgraded to the status of Shnayim. So Ula's halach of Nemon Kishnayim only applies after Hitiru Linase. Now, I'm not sure if the same requirement of Hitiru Linase would apply if the second aid was an aid apostle and the first aid who testified Meis Bailach was an aid kosher. Let's say a woman was machish, the first aid, it was a man. Would we still say that unless it was Hitiru Linase, it's Eid Echad B'Chashem? I don't know. Now the Mishnah said Eid Echad Omer Beis U'Shnayim Omer Lo Beis. Afal Pi Shenisei Teitze Pshita The Ein Dvar Shel Echad B'Makom Shnayim. We have a Hachosh of two Eidim against one Shita. So again, even though Ula had said that the first Eid is Neman Kishnayim, that's only when there's no Hachosh of Shnayim. But in comparison, when vis-a-vis Shnei Eidim Ksherim, he's not believed. So why did the Mishnah have to tell us Teitze? Lo Tzricha, the Mishnah is telling us a Chiddush in the case of Psulei Eidus. That even though the two Eidim who are Makrish are Psulei Eidus, let's say they're Noshim, nevertheless they have the power to be Mavakel, the Eidus of the first Eid who is a Kosher. Again, that's the case of two. I'm not sure if there was only one Eid Apostle against one Eid Kosher. That's what I asked you before. The Sanya Rab Nechemia Omer Kol Makom Shemina Torah Leilech Ralach Acharov Deos. Even though Eid Echad is believed, he's not considered Eidus Gemura. Because after all, he's only one single Eid. And therefore, Psuli Eidus like Noshim are equal to him. So if they're Makrish the Eid Echad, then we're going to be Somech on Rov Deos. We're not going to say that the Eid Kosher has Nemanas that supersedes that of an Isha, I should say, Shtei Noshim, and therefore Asu Shtei Noshim be each Echad, Kishnei Anoshim be each Echad. Just like two against one, we believe the two against one, so two women against one Eid Kosher, we believe the women as at least to set up our kosher. He writes here, Kishmachishim Zed Somchen al Rov Deos, V'yein Omrim she'eid kosher yesh lo nemanis yoser mi isha, V'lo yizbatal yidei shtei noshim. No, shtei noshim is kishnei anoshim b'shechad. So that's called Rov Deos. And therefore, even if she got married based on the Eidus of the first Eid, we're going to bust up that marriage. Now we're going to offer an alternative interpretation of our Mishnah. Kol heicha de Eid Echad kosher meikara is afilu me'anoshim keid echad damyan. And therefore, just like in case of Eid Echad kosher, who's makrish the Rishon, he's Eino Neman, he's Bata. Because the Rishon is believed like Shnayim. So too, if you have 100 women who are Machishos the Rishon, they're not believed. Because the Rishon is considered upgraded to the status of Shnei. So when the Mishnah says that Echad Omer Meis, Shnayim Omrim Lo Meis, Teitze, that's not a case of Shtei Noshim Amachichos Eid Kosher. That would not be Teitze. Because we elevated the Eid Echad to the status of Shnayim. Ella, what's the case in the Mishnah? Kagon, the Asoy Isha Meikara. The original Eid Echad who testified Meis Bailach was an Isha. And even though she's disqualified from general Eidus, but in Eidus Isha we believe her. When she testifies Meis Baal, she's believed. But the Mishnah now is teaching us that if afterwards two women come along and testify Shalom Meis Baal, they're believed, even if they already gave a heter to the woman based on the first lady that testified Meis Baal to marry someone else. Nevertheless, now the two women are machish the Rishona, is Teitze. And now here is how we're going to interpret Rabbi Nechemia. Rabbi Nechemia Omer Kol Makom Shemina Torah Eid Echad Alach Acharov Deos V'yasu Shtei Noshim V'isha Achas Kishnei Anoshim V'isha Echad. So two women against one woman, we believe the two women, and that's called Rov Deos against the one woman. Just like two Anoshim Ksherim are believed to be Machish one Eid Echad Kosher. And even if she was Nises already, she got married, Teitze. So two Eidim against one Eid is Nises Teitze, and two Noshim who are Machish the Isha is Afal Pisha Nises Teitze. Avol Shtei Noshim Bish Echad. What's the status when two women testify against one man and he was an Eid Kosher? Is Kepalgu Palgu Dami. They're shkulim. They're considered equal. And the Shtei Noshim have the same identical status as the Eid Echad Kosher who says, Lomes. He is not believed Lahotzias Isha Meitera Rishon. Sheitirua al Pia Eida Rishon Shomer Meis. Mikevan Sharishon Nemak Shnayim. And therefore, Shtei Noshim Einu Nemonos L'Gabei Eid Shomer Meis V'lo Teitze Meitera Rishon. Again, the Gemara is going to ask Pshita. Shnayim Omer Meis V'Eidach and Omer Lo Meis. You have two people testifying that he died. So what's the Chiddush? My Kamashmalon. I mean, obviously, two are believed against one. And once again, the Gemara is going to answer the Psule Eidus, Kidei Rabbi Nechemia, the Ozil Basarov Deos. So Gemara says, "My Hainu Hach." Well, what do you mean Mechadish? You're just repeating what we learned in the Reish of the Mishnah. That if one testifies mace, and Shnayim Omer Lo Mace, is Teitze even if she got married, because Holchem Acharov Deos, and when Mavatal the Eidus of the 1-8. So Gemara answers, Mal Detema, if I only had the Reicha, I would have mistakenly think Kiyaz Lina Basarov Deos. When do we rely on Rov Deos? And we accepted two Psulim, who are Machishim the Yachid, that's only L'chumra. When the Rov Deos are going to testify that Lo Mes. And then we're going to say Rov Deos. Sheyotze Mekach Chumra. That's the case in the Reisha. Shasheni Psuli Eidus, or shall we say the Shnei Psuli Eidus, Omrim Lo Mes. And we're going to believe the two Psuli Eidus, Lahachmir Lo Tzia Min Hasheni Sheniseis Lo. Teitze. Avo Lakula in the Sefer where Shnayim Omrim Shemeis. And therefore she's allowed to get married, Lo. We're not going to go after Rov Deos in the Havamim. But the Shnayim Apsulim, who testified that mess, they're considered like 1-8. And therefore she's not allowed to get married. Kamach Malan, that's what the Tana wants to teach me in this Sefer, that even Lakula Holchanach Rov Deos, and we're going to accept the testimony of the second pair of Eidim, we're going to allow her to get remarried. And that's called Azlina and Basarov Deos Lakula. When Shnayim Omer Meis. And this leads us to the Mishnah on the bottom of Daf Kuf Yud Zayin Amud Beis. Achas Omeres Meis, v'achas Omeres Lo Meis. Zusha Omeres Meis Ti Nase, v'tipol Ksubas. We're talking about two tzaros who are both married to the same man. One testifies that her husband died, the other denies it. So the law is Zusha Omeres Meis Ti Nase, v'tipol Ksuba. She's believed for herself, as we learned back in Kuf Zayin Amud Beis, and she collected Ksuba. V'zusha Omeres Lo Meis. Lo tinase v'lo titol ksubasa. Because the tzara is not nemenes to say lo meis. Again, as far as herself is concerned, she's believed. Says lo meis. That's called shavya nafshi chaticha disura. Achas omeres meis, v'achas omeres nerag. Both Saros agree that the husband died. But the question is, did he die of a natural cause or was he murdered? Rabbi Meir Omer Hol Machisha Zu et Zu. In Dine Edus is Akhasha. We cannot create any sort of edus here that her husband died, even though they both agree that the husband died, because one of them is telling the lie. Either he died a natural death or he was killed. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon Omer, no. They both agree that the husband is gone. Eidach Omer Mace. And before they gave her a head to Linase, based on that one aid, Eidach Omer Lomes. There's an Eidach Chasha. Here we turn to Daf Kuf Yud Ches Amud Aleph, and so too Isha Omeres Mace. The Isha Acheres, another woman comes before they gave her head to Linase, based on the first testimony. The Omeres Lomes. Harezelo Tinase. She will not get married al pi ha'ed, or a woman who said mace, because now there's hakchasha, there's a situation of shtakul, and it was before they had to linase. This leads us to a suffix. And even if she would get married, she would be teitzeh, because we have that hakchasha. And this leads us to the Gemara here on the top of Kuf Yud Ches Amud Aleph.